Hey, what's up? My grandparents are British, so that means that they have fun accents, but also it means that on Sundays as a kid, we would get together and eat Yorkshire pudding and roast beef. Some of my best memories of all time came from eating this meal, and it's really, really close to my heart. So I wanted to show you guys how to make it. In this video, I'll show you the best cut of beef for a Sunday roast. I'll show you a foolproof way to get it rosy, mid-rare every time, and then I'll show you how to make eggy, tender Yorkshire puddings that never collapse. To get started, I'll grab a 5-pound roast of beef, specifically a sirloin tip roast. I like sirloin for Sunday roast because for the price, it's quite tender and has substantial beef flavor, especially compared to the other cuts that you would normally use for Sunday roast. If you can't find sirloin, sub in rump roast. This is from a leaner section on the back end of the cow, and out of the 5 cuts that I tested for this recipe, it was the second best. Like sirloin, rump is relatively well priced at about $7 to $8 per pound. Just know that it has a little bit less fat than sirloin, so it'll taste a little bit less beefy. To prep this sirloin, I'm gonna grab a 5-foot length of butcher's twine, slide it under the roast, then tie things off at the top by threading it through 2 times instead of 1. This is called a butcher's knot, and it's great for tying roast because when I crank down on it, the double loop holds the whole string in place, which provides a much more stable place to start tying a roast from. Once I've got the initial bit of string lassoed and secured, I'm gonna lay the string down another 2 inches from the first bit, hold it in place with my thumb, then loop it around. This time, when I get the string around the backside, I'm gonna pass it under the first loop to create a cross or a T-shape. Then I'll pull my slack through, and then I'm going to take the slack out by moving up the bottom side of the string and then cranking back down on the leading part to pull through any extra. I'm basically just making a loop here and then getting it tight. There's no knot. From here, I'll repeat that loop maneuver 3 more times until I've got a tight loop every 2 inches or so. Then I'm gonna flip this roast over and run the string under the backside. That's just gonna be a loop under the previous strings to keep things tidy and tight. Once I get to the end here, I'm gonna flip it over 1 more time and then tie the string to the part where I started. And then I'll just snip off the extra bits. If this is too advanced for you, you can ask your butcher to tie it up, or you can skip it. If you do skip it, just be prepared for a roast that cooks a little bit more unevenly. Next, let's make the marinade. For that, I'll combine 50 grams of olive oil with 50 grams of Dijon mustard. My strong preference here is for Grey Poupon. Then I'll add in 5 grams of cracked black pepper and 20 grams of salt. Once everything's in the bowl, I'll just stir to combine. Next, I'll slop this mustard paste onto the beef and then spread it all over. I love the mustard here for 2 reasons. Number 1, it acts as a spackle that helps spread out and adhere the salt and pepper. And number 2, it brings a little bit of zip to the outside of the roasted meat that makes your mouth water when you eat it. But for the mustard haters out there, it doesn't make the roast taste mustardy. Once roasted, it just brings a little bit more flavor that you can't put your finger on. Okay, once this roast is all slathered up with marinade, I'm gonna go 1 step further with the salt and give each of the 4 sides a strong 3-finger pinch. The interior-exterior ratio on a big piece of meat like this is very biased towards the interior, which has no salt. So in my opinion, we need to overcompensate by making the outside super salty. Once seasoned up, I'm gonna move this over to the fridge to marinate for at least 1 hour, but preferably overnight. This allows the salt to penetrate the meat, which makes it much juicier, and it dries out the outside, which leads to a crustier beef that takes browning much better. The next day, I'm gonna get my oven really hot, about 500 F. While that preheats, I'm gonna hit the dried out mustardy beef with a long ziggy of olive oil. Then I'll spread that out to loop things up. This extra layer of fat helps transfer the high heat of the oven to the surface of the meat. Without it, the meat would brown way too slowly, and we'd end up with a lot of overcooked gray area around the outside. The oven's up to a rip now, so I'm gonna load in my oiled meat and sear it with the hot air for about 15 to 20 minutes. If your oven doesn't get close to 500 F, I would recommend searing this on the stovetop in a 10 to 12 inch nonstick pan. And after a quick 20-minute oven sear, I'm gonna pull this roast out of the oven. This isn't the most insanely golden brown sear of all time, but it's definitely enough. This is gonna get darker as we finish cooking it. From here, I'm gonna lower the oven temp to 275, then I'm gonna open the door so the box cools off way faster. Next, I'm gonna pour about a cup's worth of water under my roast. This will catch the drippings and keep them from burning on the bottom of the pan so that I can use them in the gravy later on. I'm also gonna drop in a probe thermometer. Most people prepare their Sunday roast by going with the time per pound cooking method, and that's obviously not a good idea. Using a probe is way more accurate, and it helps you predict when the meat is gonna be done. Okay, I'm gonna load this roast into my 275 F oven and cook it for about 90 to 120 minutes. While that cooks, I'm gonna make the batter for the real star of this show, the Yorkshire puddings. For that, into a bowl, I'll combine 6 large eggs, 9 grams of salt, and 375 grams of whole milk. Next, I'll jump in and crack up the yolks with a whisk, then whip everything up until combined, basically. I like to make this batter as soon as the roast goes into the oven so that the batter can rest for a little while. I find this gives the puddings more loft in the oven and more stability post-bake. Okay, once the wet is homogeneous, I'm gonna grab 240 grams of all-purpose flour and sprinkle that in. There we go. Then I'll grab a whisk, jump back into the bowl, and stir this until things are well combined and there aren't any lumps. That'll take about 60 seconds or so. And once things are stirred together, I'm gonna transfer this over to a container to hang out in the fridge until 30 minutes before baking. While that hangs out, I wanna thank Bombas for sponsoring this video. This year at Christmas, I realized that I'm old now because the only thing I got was socks, and I was very stoked because they were Bombas. What's the big deal? Bombas are just really frickin' high quality socks. And at 37, I value that a lot. Right now I'm wearing my favorite merino wool blend Bombas, which have great temperature regulation, so they're comfortable in any season. But aside from being cozy and breathable, Bombas specifically add in so many features that make for a great foot experience. The footbed is really cushiony, there's no annoying toe seam, and they grip your foot in the middle so the socks stay put. Beyond that, Bombas has this cool thing called one purchased, one donated, and they've donated over 150 million items so far. That's insane. New customers of Bombas get 20% off their first purchase with my code. Just go to bombas.com/BrianL and use code BrianL at checkout. These things are risk-free too. Bombas has a 100% happiness guarantee, so if something goes wrong, they'll make it right. If you want to get 20% off your first order, go to bombas.com/BrianL and use code BrianL. Thank you, Bombas. Okay, the last little bit of prep here is making the beef gravy. For that, I'll grab a 2-quart saucepan and drop it on the stove over medium heat. Once that's hot, I'll add in 50 grams of butter and melt it. Then in goes 25 grams of all-purpose flour. I'll whisk that in until I've got a little roux going on, and then I'll cook that out for about 60 seconds to fry off the raw flour taste while whisking constantly. From here, I'll add in 450 grams of store-bought beef stock while whisking to prevent any lumps from forming. Then I'll add in 10 grams of wort and 30 grams of better than bouillon beef base to make this actually taste like beef. The store-bought beef stock that we used earlier just isn't that flavorful. From here, I'll bring this gravy up to a simmer, then turn the heat down to medium-low and reduce for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, this gravy is thickened and very flavorful. As good as this is, though, it's gonna be way better when we add in all the beef drippings in a few minutes. For now, I'll set this gravy aside into a smaller container that I actually have a lid for. That'll prevent a skin from forming. Back to the beef. The instant read thermometer is reading 122F at this point, which is exactly where I want it. When I pull out this meat, you can see it looks great. It's browned, it's juicy, and it smells beefy. From here, I'll tent it with a little bit of foil so that it doesn't get too cold during what ends up being a pretty long rest time, about 30 minutes. Now I'm gonna set that aside and then grab a 12-count cupcake or muffin pan and drop it in my oven. I'm also gonna preheat this MF to 500F. I want that cupcake pan ripping hot. After about 5 minutes, this pan is somewhere in the ballpark of 425 to 450F. So next, I'm gonna hit it with a liberal dose of pan spray. If you have beef fat, you could use that. That's a little bit more of the traditional British way to make these. But in my experience, using the beef fat was a little bit finicky, and I don't think most home cooks have easy access to it. So I opted to go with pan spray. When I was growing up, my mom used pan spray for her Yorkshire puddings, and they were delicious. Next, I'm gonna pour in enough batter to fill these little cupcake holes about halfway up. Also, a lot of recipes will tell you that the pan needs to be so hot that the batter sizzles as soon as you pour it in. First of all, it's really hard to get a sizzle in the first place because most cupcake pans are made of cheap metal that cools off rapidly. Second of all, based on my testing, you can make really beautiful Yorkshire puddings with a searing hot pan or a pretty hot pan. Both work. Once the batter's in the pan, I'm gonna load it into the oven and then immediately turn things down to 425F. Now there's two main moves that I'm using to keep these puddings from collapsing post-bake. Number one is long bake time. A longer bake will fully set the outside, which provides the structure needed to hold things up. The second move is after 20 to 22 minutes of bake time, I'll pop open the oven and then pierce each pudding with a sharp paring knife. If you don't do this as the puddings cool, a reverse vacuum effect takes place, which sucks the puddings into themselves, which is a fancy way of saying they fully collapse. Once I pull these out, you can see they look good. Oh my gosh, those look so perfect. They're fully puffed and deeply golden brown. Don't hesitate to bake these guys very hard, you guys. They can take it and they really need it to hold themselves up. The last detail before we eat is to do something with all these tasty resting juices from the beef. So I'm gonna lift my roast off the tray, then add in just a little bit of water to help scrape up all the beef fond that might be stuck to the bottom of the pan. Oh my God, this smells so good. Woo! Once loosened, I'm going to pour the beef drips through a strainer into my hot gravy. Then I'll stir those juices in and call it a day. Now, after a 30-minute rest, I'm going to grab that beef and cut into it with a sharp slicing knife to see how we did on the cook. And it's looking really nice. It's rosy pink all the way through, and there isn't a lot of gray area around the edges. There's just enough to provide some textural contrast from the soft, medium rare meat in the middle. From here, I'll do my best to shave off some thin slices. Luckily, since this sirloin is pretty tender, I can slice things imperfectly and still have buttery, soft beef. The last step is to plate everything up on a warm plate with some steamed Brussels and smashed potatoes. Ooh, and a little gravy inside the Yorkshire is essential too. For me, this is Sunday roast perfection. It's simultaneously humble but decadent. This is the meal that you make to share with your friends or family on Sundays. Anyone can make it, everyone will love it, and it makes whoever eats it feel loved and at home. I hope you guys give it a try, and if you want to see another recipe vid from me, I'll link one here right on the screen. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.
The gravied Yorkshire, dude. That's my childhood right there.